Hello, hello. Hi, Schooner Mom. Yeah, that's why I read it, so you guys don't have to. But, I didn't get to read ahead this time, so I'm just gonna do my best and read it. See if I can cut anything out. Oh, I just got my own notification. That's hilarious. I'll give it a couple minutes. There's two other bigger channels that are live right now, so it's a good chance we don't get too many people today. But that's fine. This is definitely something people can watch on the replay. So I'm exhausted from my first night of work. Wow. Glad I'm not afraid of the dark though, because when we trained, it was daylight. There and on two of the floors, it's storage, but I have to check the whole floor. So the only light I have is my flashlight. And when you get off the elevator, it's just darkness. Yeah. I only got 4 hours because by the time I went over to the office to try pants on and got home and got wound down, I had to get up by 2, so but I slept so hard and went to sleep so fast. It's mostly my back, my lower back. My legs and feet are fine. It's just my lower back. So, but I had bought a back brace from Amazon. I put that on a few hours in and it did help a lot. So, I have this whole list I was looking at of things I want to order or whatever. Like I need insoles for the work shoes and stuff like that. Yeah. I didn't have too much trouble staying awake because I'm an insomniac anyway. So there was only a couple times I was staring at the cameras and I kind of zoned for a minute. I didn't go to sleep. I was just like, so it's mostly walking. And if the phone I carry is any indication, it tracks your steps. Now I don't know if it counted just my shift or not, but I walked a lot, over a mile. Because I have to do so while we're waiting. So literally just a couple buildings down is the homeless shelter. So sometimes we have to chase people off the property. So right around the time it got dark, we have a box truck that's pulled up, backed up to the loading dock, and there's a camera right on the back of it. And people go back there and do all kinds of crazy crap. And I had to go chase somebody out from there. I'm not even going to tell you what he was doing. It was gross. So that's the only thing. And then about way mid I don't know what you call it, middle of the night, I did text Tom and tell him I was going on a perimeter check, and I was going to text him when I got back because you have to go outside and it's downtown and in the dark. Well, doofus, I'm walking around doing my thing and he drives up behind me and scares the bejesus out of me. I was like, gee, thanks. But he's got lights all the way that he can turn on all the way around his car. And there's a little alley I have to check. I said, you know what? Since you're here, shine up this alley for me. So, but other than that, it was pretty uneventful. Other than that, once we have customers until like 9. Once they're gone, I'm all by myself, which I don't mind. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It might just be us today. Like I said, oh no, there's a couple people on here. Because there's some other people going live right now, but that's not a big deal. This is, like I said before, something you can definitely watch on the replay. And I always tell people you can always fast forward about 5 minutes and ignore all this part. But okay, so let's share screen. And I'm only going to read for an hour today. I need a little bit of extra time I want to pack up a different backpack than I was using and So normally I would read, just put my clothes on and leave. But I need a little extra time. So like I said, I'm only going to read for an hour today. We're still in Hubbard's which chapter? Hold on, what chapter are we on? Well, it's about his explore. I think it's Hubbard the Explorer. We're still into that. And if I see anything we can kind of skip, I will, but not so much. So, oh, I need to be off. There we go. Cool. All right. I think we read the Alaskan trip. Okay, I think we read that. Let's see. Yeah, we read about where he borrowed the money. I don't know where I know I bookmarked it, but I didn't know how to find the bookmark. So I hope I'm right here. Do you remember us talking about Hubbard was apparently an accomplished sailor, receiving a license to master of steam and motor vessels in December 1940, and a license to master of sail vessels any ocean in May of 1941. That didn't sound familiar to me, so I'm going to go from there. Oh, hold on. Ugh. Let me get a drink real quick. So it seems like things he liked, he did have a little bit of accomplishment, like getting the licenses for sea vessels. And that was even before he was in the war in the Navy. Okay. In 1938, Hubbard had failed to secure a place in the Air Corps, and in 1939, the U.S. War Department turned him down. By the spring of 1941, Hubbard was living in New York and waging an all-out campaign for a commission in the U.S. Naval Reserve with assignment to intelligence duties. Hubbard pursued this objective by coaxing his friends to write letters of reference to the U.S. Navy. In March, Jimmy Britton of KGBU Radio in Alaska wrote to the Secretary of the Navy complaining that during a 10-month stay in Alaska, Hubbard had been instrumental in bringing to justice a German saboteur who had devised it to be in his power to cut off Alaska from communication with the U.S. in time of war. Hubbard does not seem to have mentioned this episode himself, and it is highly likely that Britton heard the story from Hubbard. Britton said Hubbard had spent 10 months in Alaska. Hubbard, in a letter to the Seattle Star, written in 1940, said he had been in Alaska from July to November. The time had been doubled, and Hubbard's heroics had probably been doubled too. There was a letter from the commander, W.E. McCain, of the U.S. Navy, which stated, "I have found him to be of excellent character, honest, ambitious, and always very anxious to improve himself, to better himself, and become a more useful citizen." A letter written in April 1941 by Warren Magnuson of the House of Representatives to President Roosevelt said, "An interesting trait is his distaste for personal publicity." Oh my goodness. Sorry. I couldn't hold that in. I gotta read that again, y'all. An interesting trait is his distaste for personal publicity. He is both discreet and resourceful, as his record should indicate. Oh my gosh, I know, Scooter Mom. Wow. Just wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, I gotta keep going. All right, where were we? Doubled. Okay. A letter allegedly from a professor at George Washington University explained that Hubbard's average grades in engineering were due to the obvious fact that he had started in the wrong career. They do not reflect his great ability. Wow, how did he get these people to write these letters? He didn't have any money to pay him, so I just don't know. All right. In May came a letter from Robert Ford, also of the House of Representatives, who recommended Hubbard as one of the most brilliant men I have ever known. Discreet, loyal, and honest. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I can keep reading this. Wow. Ford said that he and Hubbard were close friends at the time and admits that he probably gave Hubbard some of his notepaper and told him to write whatever he liked. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Lastly, a letter from the editor of Astounding Science Fiction, John Campbell, who confined himself mainly to praise of Hubbard's ability to turn in a story on time, but added, in personal relationships, I have the highest opinion of him as a thoroughly American gentleman. Hubbard stepped up his campaign after he was rejected by the U.S. Navy Reserves in April. His eyesight was inadequate. However, with the expansion of the armed forces due to the growing U.S. commitment to the European War, Hubbard's poor eyesight was waived and he achieved his goal. In July 1941, 5 months before the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Navy finally yielded to Hubbard's entreaties and gave him a commission in the reserve. Wow, I bet they came to regret that. Yeah. So because of the war, he got... Yeah. Okay, Hubbard as hero. This should be interesting. I do not hesitate to recommend him without reserve as a man of intelligence, courage, and good breeding, as well as one of the most versatile personalities I have ever known. Jimmy Britton, president of KGBU Radio. He is garrulous. I have never seen that word before. He is garrulous and tries to give impressions of his importance. I gotta look that up. There are a lot of big words we don't use anymore. Let's see, garrulous. How do you spell that? Garr. Means excessively talkative, especially on trivial matters. Okay, now that one was on point. I have to say. That one was on point. All right. Oh, whoops. This was from the U.S. Naval Attaché for Australia, writing of Hubbard in 1942. There were some weird things that happened with him in the Navy, I hope they get into here, where he just royally effed up anything he touched. Hubbard's claims about his Navy career form a major part of the Superman image he tried to project. He and his followers have claimed he saw action in the Philippines upon the U.S. entry into World War II. Hubbard was supposedly the first returned casualty from the Far East and was dispatched immediately to the command of an anti-submarine warfare vessel which served in the North Atlantic. He allegedly rose to command the 4th British Corvette Squadron and then saw service with amphibious forces in the Pacific, ending the war in Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, crippled and blinded, the recipient of between 21 and 27 medals and palms. His exploits were, Hubbard claimed, the basis for a Hollywood movie starring Henry Fonda. As ever, there are inconsistencies between Hubbard's own accounts. You think? Yeah. It was perfect. All right. Hubbard also referred to his time in naval intelligence. Oh, I wanted to mention something here, too, because we talk about this sometimes, that even if I think Scientologists had questions about some of this, back in the day before the internet, it was really hard to get service records. And I think it was really hard for anyone other than that soldier to get the records. So he could literally say whatever he wanted, and they really couldn't check. All right. Hubbard also referred to his time in naval intelligence, and much is made of this experience by Scientologists. On his U.S. Navy Reserve Commission papers issued in July 1941, he was designated a volunteer for special service, intelligence duties, an assignment he requested. His service record shows that when he was eventually called to permanent active duty in November, he was indeed posted as an intelligence officer. The expression conjures up cloak and dagger images better associated with the CIA's forerunner, the Office of Strategic Services, which did not exist at that time. Although the U.S. was not yet at war, France had fallen and the Japanese threat was recognized. The U.S. Navy was on a major recruiting drive when Hubbard was commissioned. The duties of intelligence officers at the time were largely routine, involving the censorship of letters and the collection, compilation, and distribution of information. Hubbard nominally served in this capacity for 5 months, spending most of that time either in transit or in training. After receiving his Naval Reserve Commission, Hubbard was not immediately called to active duty. By this time, he was employed as a civilian by the Navy in New York City, working with public relations and recruiting. That's surprising. I hadn't heard that. He was only on active duty for 2 weeks between his commissioning in July and the end of November. He was ordered to the Hydrographic Office Bureau of Navigation in Washington, D.C. There he annotated the photographs he had taken during his trip to Alaska the year before. A Hydrographic Office memo reads, "These items are all brief and some are unimportant, but in the aggregate, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, they represent a very definite contribution." The memo adds that Hubbard's information would be used in the 1942 update of the sailing directions for British Columbia, section 175 and possibly 176. On October 6, he was honorably released from temporary active duty. Hubbard was next called to active duty at the end of November, 2 weeks before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Wow. In 1984, Captain Thomas Moulton testified in court as a witness for the Scientologists. Moulton had served briefly with Hubbard and expressed a deep admiration for him. Moulton recounted another of Hubbard's claims of military prowess, which the Scientologists probably had not expected. According to Moulton, on the day the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, Hubbard had been landed, so he told me, in Hava from a destroyer named the Edsel, misspelled Edsel, in the court transcript, and had made his way across the land to Surabaya. When the Japanese came in, he took off into the hills and lived up in the jungle for some time. What? He was, as far as I know, the only person that ever got off the Edsel. She was sunk within a few days after that. Hubbard had allegedly been a gunnery officer on the Edsel. Hubbard also told Moulton that he had been hit by machine gun fire in the back in the area of the kidneys. He told me he made his escape eventually to Australia. He and another chap sailed a life raft to West Australia, where they were picked up by a British or Australian destroyer on the order of 75 miles off Australia. It was a remarkable piece of navigation. Sailing over 700 miles in a life raft is remarkable indeed. There is no way that anybody believed that. Hi, Cricket. We got a small group today. There's a lot of people going live right now. So I appreciate anybody that did show up. But this is a good thing for people to watch on replay, I think. And you can always make me go faster. Most of the stuff I watch, I turn up faster. So I could, like I said before, my son watched the intro video and he was in the Navy. And he even said the thing that upset him the most, he said in the elevator, he said that stuff is evil. They're what did he say? They're using that information in a underhanded way. He used different words. I can't remember exactly what he said. And he knew he was only in the Navy 4.5 years. And listening, he didn't even hear all of this. A lot of this wasn't in that movie. And he's like, there is no way somebody in that time period, 20s and 30s and 40s, did the traveling that he did or said he did with the transportation at the time. He wasn't old enough. If you remember last chapter, he told somebody all the stuff he did, and the guy said, Ron, you're 84 years old. So, all right, let's get back. All right. So, had to hit kidneys. Here we go. In fact, Hubbard's naval record shows no time on Hava. I think I'm saying that right. Java. He had been ordered to active duty on November 24th, 1941, and on the day of Pearl Harbor was attacked, Hubbard was half a world away from Hava in New York City. So that it was checked out. 8 days after his supposed landing in Hava, Hubbard was receiving instruction at the District Intelligence Office in San Francisco. Hubbard was en route to the Philippines when the ship's destination was changed to Australia. Hubbard left the ship in Brisbane on January 11th. Japanese action against Hava began at the end of February. The USS Edsel was sunk at the beginning of March, long after Pearl Harbor, and Hava surrendered to the Japanese on March 9th. On the same day, Hubbard, in fact, boarded the MV Pennant in Brisbane, Australia, bound for the U.S. I need a drink. Hold on. When Hubbard arrived in Brisbane in January 1942, he seems to have informally attached himself to a newly landed U.S. Army unit. Within a few weeks, he was in trouble with his Navy superiors. There had been a mix-up over the routing of a ship, and a copy of a secret dispatch had gone astray. While Hubbard may not have been to blame, he took the undiplomatic course of writing a report about the incident, which was openly hostile of his senior officers, including the U.S. Naval Attaché. Well, that's a good way to benefit your career by snitching on your superiors. The Scientologists offer a document written by Infantry Colonel Alexander Johnson to the commander of the base force Darwin, Australia, dated February 13, 1942. The document describes Hubbard as an intelligent, resourceful, and dependable officer. Mm-hmm. He must be paying these people off. The following day, the U.S. Naval Attaché to Australia expressed a very different point of view. By assuming unauthorized authority and attempting to perform duties for which he has no qualifications, he became the source of much trouble. This, however, was made possible by the representative of the U.S. Army at Brisbane. This officer is not satisfactory for independent duty assignment. Again, he is garrulous. They like that word then. And tries to give impressions of his importance. He also seems to think that he has unusual ability in most lines. These characteristics indicate that he will require close supervision for satisfactory performance of any intelligence duty. Far from being an important intelligence operative, as the Scientologists fondly believe, Hubbard was simply a nuisance. So much so that after only a month in Australia, orders were prepared for Hubbard's return to the U.S. Oh, goodness gracious. I am so glad they found these reports. I just am. It tickles me to death. Okay. 20 years later, Hubbard described his brief time in Australia. My acquaintances go back to being the only anti-aircraft battery in Australia in 1941 to 42. I was up at Brisbane. There was me and a Thompson submachine gun. I was a male officer and I was replaced, I think, by a captain, a couple of commanders, and about 15 junior officers. They replaced me. I came home. He made no mention of his supposed adventures on Hava. A Scientology press release claims that Hubbard was flown home in the late spring of 42 in the Secretary of the Navy's private plane as the first U.S. returned casualty from the Far East. Another Scientology account adds that Hubbard was relieved by 15 officers of rank, no longer junior officers, so that was changed, and was rushed home to take part in the 1942 battle against German submarines as commanding officer of a corvette serving in the North Atlantic. Yet another Scientology account says he rose to command a squadron. In reality, after his return by ship to San Francisco at the end of March 1942, Hubbard was hospitalized for Catarrhal fever, which he had contracted aboard ship. Being the first U.S. return casualty from the Far East, seems to have consisted of having a bad cold. A doctor noted that he was somewhat preoccupied with himself. Okay. For a doctor to notate that, I think kind of says a lot. That they notate his personality. Oh my gosh. Everybody big is live right now. I just got another notification. That's okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, upon recovering from his cold, Hubbard was posted to intelligence duties at Naval Headquarters in San Francisco. He immediately requested transfer to New York. After 2 weeks, he was sent to the office of the cable censor in New York. A dispatch written in April says, the chief cable censor is cognizant of the letter from the Naval Attaché, Australia, dated February 14, 1942, and has considered the suggestion made therein. It is therefore recommended that no disciplinary action be taken. Okay. In New York, Hubbard went on the sick list almost immediately, suffering from conjunctivitis for a few days. During World War II, junior U.S. naval officers were promoted in batches, and in June, Hubbard became a lieutenant senior grade. This was the highest rank he achieved, which was unusual as he continued in active service for more than 3 years beyond this date. When Hubbard was transferred to New York, cable censorship had just ceased to be a function of intelligence, so Hubbard ceased to be an intelligence officer. His designation for work in intelligence was amended to that of a deck officer. He requested sea duty in the Caribbean, but was posted to Neponset, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston, at the end of June 1942. There he was to oversee the conversion of a trawler, the MV Mist, into a Navy Yard patrol craft, the USS YP 422. Nobody cares about that. A Scientology press release says that the Mist, under Hubbard's command, served with British and American anti-submarine warfare vessels in the North Atlantic. The truth is less heroic. The Mist put to sea from the Boston Navy Yard on training exercises. Wait, what? In August. Okay, in August. The exercise lasted 27 hours, in which time he fired a few practice rounds, but it saw no action. What are you barking at? What are you barking at? What? Really? You never do that. Are you okay? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Calm down. Come on. Okay. They were alone all night last night. That's unusual. Okay. She's upset about something. All right, let me keep going. Oh, where were we? So no action. practice round. Okay. Once again, Hubbard managed to antagonize his superiors. In a dispatch to the Vice Chief of Naval Operations, the Commandant of Boston Navy Yard wrote, Lieutenant L.R. Hubbard is in command, completing conversion and fitting out at Boston. In the opinion of the Commandant, he is not temperamentally fitted for independent command. It is therefore urgently requested that he be detached and that order for relief be expedited in view of the expected early departure of the vessel. Believe Hubbard capable of useful service if ordered to other duty under immediate supervision of a more senior officer. In October 1, Hubbard was summarily detached from that ship and ordered to New York. So ended his only command in the Atlantic. Although his record shows no service in the Eastern Atlantic, a photograph shows Hubbard wearing the European and African campaign ribbon nonetheless. Ooh, he faked his ribbons. The Scientology tale, doubtless inspired if not written by Hubbard, about his command of a squadron pursuing German submarines is entirely fanciful. Not even a nugget of truth there. Back in New York, Hubbard wrote to the Bank of Alaska, who had finally caught up with him, explaining that he could not repay the $265 he had borrowed during his 1940 expedition. This is only one of a number of unpaid debts recorded in his Navy file. Yeah, so, that was a long time ago, but I can tell you. Oh, hi, 3 Lori. Hi, AA. Yeah, when I'm reading, I can't see the chat because I have to go to a different screen. So, that's why. So, being military ourselves, I will tell you, it is so different from a regular job where when you go home, you're done with them. No. The military, your unit, especially like your first sergeant, there's chief petty officer, I think is equivalent in the Navy. They are in all of your business. If you have an unpaid debt, they will contact your chain of command and you can get punished for that. So the thing about it is, that's why, especially in a military town, people throw credit at you. They will approve you for anything because they know that if you renege and you're active duty, that they can go to your unit and you'll get paid. And if you're having trouble with your wife or anything like that, they are in your business about all of it. That's one of the biggest reasons I never liked living on post. I only lived in base housing in California. When we got here, I never even got on the list for housing because it was a 2-year-long waiting list. By the time that came around, we'd already bought our house. So that just explains kind of what, why they contacted him. But I don't know if it's going to go into it. Why they didn't force him to pay that debt. Second thing, after Scientology started and he was raking in the dough, why didn't he go back and pay these debts just to get him off his record? I mean, he had every opportunity to do that. All right, let's see. All right. So it was in his file, but it doesn't sound like they did anything about it that's in his file. Hubbard again requested sea duty in the Caribbean, but in November 1942 was ordered to the Submarine Chaser Center in Florida for training. In a lecture given in 1964, Hubbard talked about his time there. Fortunately, it was a lovely, lovely warm classroom, and I was shipped for a very short time down into the south of Florida. And boy, was I able to catch up on some sleep. Okay. A Scientology publication claims that in 1943, Hubbard became a Commodore of Corvette Squadrons. Whatever else he was, Hubbard was certainly never a Commodore, the rank between Captain and Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy, at least until he appointed himself to the rank of his Sea Org nearly 25 years later. After 2 months in the warm classrooms of Florida, Hubbard was posted on January 1943 to the Albina shipyards in Portland, Oregon. There he was to assist with the fitting out of the PC-815 and to assume command when she was commissioned. The PC-815 was a patrol craft, a sleek-hulled submarine chaser of approximately 280 tons full load, according to Jane's fighting ships. Hubbard asked Thomas Moulton, with whom he had studied in Florida, to become his executive officer when the ship was commissioned. Moulton was posted to Portland in March 1943. He arrived to find Hubbard recovering from another bout of Catterhall fever in the care of his wife, Polly. Hubbard's eye troubled him, and he wore dark glasses constantly. At a dance at the Seattle Tennis Club, he took off the glasses, and Moulton says Hubbard's eyes reddened and began to water in a matter of minutes. He told Moulton his difficulty was due to the flash from a large caliber gun on a destroyer he had been on. During a medical examination in 1946, Hubbard attributed his visual trouble to excessive tropical sunlight. The real problem was a recurrence of his conjunctivitis. So literally eye drops would have fixed his eye problem. Hi, Aaron. So, gee whiz. This guy was, wow. Repeated pink eye. Yeah, eye drops. It's easily transmittable because you just have to touch them and touch something else. But it's also pretty easy to get rid of. When I had home daycare, it went around the home daycare. So, okay. Let's see what more stories they can tell us. Okay. Moulton added he frequently complained of pain in his right side and the back in the area of the kidneys, which he said was due to some damage from a Japanese machine gun. And from that, he had considerable difficulty in urination. And upon at least one occasion, I saw him urinating bloody urine. What? That sounds like a kidney infection that he did not take care of. Attorney Michael Flynn later suggested that Hubbard's difficulty might well have been a social disease. Oh. Mentioned in Hubbard's private papers. Bloody urine can result from an excess of sulfa drugs, commonly used at the time as a treatment for venereal disease. Hubbard later complained about the amount of sulfa drugs he had been fed in the Navy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. When the PC-815 was commissioned on April 21st, Hubbard became her commanding officer. The next day, a remarkable article was printed in the Oregon Journal. The text is headed with a picture of Hubbard in dark glasses and Moulton and reads in part, Lieutenant Commander Ron Red Hubbard, former Portlander, veteran sub-hunter of the battles of the Pacific and Atlantic, has been given a birthday present for Herr Hitler by Albina Hell Shipyard. Hubbard is an active member of the Explorers Club, New York City. He has commanded 3 internationally important expeditions for the organization. Oh my gosh. In 1934, Hubbard had charge of the Caribbean Motion Picture Expedition and took the first underwater films. He was the first to use the now famous bathysphere or diving ball for this work. In 1935, Hubbard headed a cartographic survey in West Indian waters, and in 1939 and 1940, for the Navy Hydrographic Office, led the noted Alaska Radio Experimental Expedition. Hubbard comes from a long line of naval men. His father is Lieutenant H.R. Hubbard, his grandfather, Captain Lafayette Waterbury, his great-grandfather, Captain I.C. DeWolf, all of whom helped to make American naval history. We are then told that Hubbard spent his youth in Portland, and given his statement about the Albina hell ships, those little sweethearts are tough. They could lick the pants off anything Nelson or Farragut ever sailed. They put up a sizzling fight and are the only answer to the submarine's menace. I state emphatically that the future of America rests with just such escort vessels. In the journal, Hubbard has been promoted and his father demoted. There is no mention elsewhere of Captain Waterbury's naval career, and I.C. DeWolf was the maiden name of Hubbard's maternal grandmother, Ida Corrine. As usual, the story was tailored to fit the circumstances. Hubbard had cut his cloth to fit a man of greater stature than himself. Oh, here we go. I want to get to the shakedown cruise I read about before. So we're about to get there. Yep, exactly. Have you guys watched, I think it was on Natalie's show, where they were trying to put forth a proclamation in a town and all these people got up to denounce Dianetics? That, I want to get more information on that. I was in the car listening to it, so. But yeah, so I've always said when I was looking through the Corsicana Sun here in Texas, somebody told me to, and I punched in Scientology and I saw all these press releases, and I could tell that they literally just sent the press release to the newspaper and they printed it, because online now they have unlimited space online. When it was a newspaper and you had to be particular about what you put in there, they probably didn't get as much in. Now everybody's gone digital and they'll just, okay, it's a church, we'll print it. So we've really got to start contacting newspapers a lot more to try to just to let them know who they are and stop printing this crap. All right, let's see what happened on this cruise. In mid-May 1943, the newly refitted USS PC-815 sailed from Astoria on the Oregon coast into the Pacific on a shakedown cruise. Her destination was San Diego. Shortly after leaving Astoria, sonar readings indicated the presence of a submarine, at least according to Hubbard and Moulton in the action report they filed at the time. Strangely enough, Hubbard does not seem to have recounted this story to his followers. Yeah, that is strange. Despite many remarkable tales about his naval career, this was the only action which even approached a battle in which he took part. Hubbard's report runs to 18 typewritten pages. It was written 2 days after the PC-815 had returned to Astoria amid considerable skepticism. As Hubbard admitted, so he backed it up with several other reports from the crew. Admiral Fletcher, Commander Northwest Sea Frontier, who reviewed Hubbard's report, found it was not in accordance with anti-submarine action by surface ship. Fletcher had a point. The action report reads strangely like a short story. How are we surprised? The battle took place off Cape Lookout, some 50 miles south of the mouth of the Columbia River. The PC-815 was in the steamer track 10 or 12 miles off the Oregon coast. After an echo contact had been checked, the PC-815 laid 3 depth charges just before 4 a.m. on May 19th, shortly before 5 a.m. Hubbard gave orders to fire on an object that was apparently in the early morning light. In his report, he admitted that it was probably a log, but justified the attack as a means of checking the PC's guns. Oh, wow. A log. In the first hour, the 815 made 3 runs using 9 depth charges. Hubbard had to be more sparing with the remaining 3, which were laid one at a time on 3 successive runs. Hubbard said that his object was to force the submarine to come up so it could be attacked with the guns. The 815 was joined by 2 anti-submarine blimps, non-rigid airships, at 9 that morning, by which time she had no charges left. The submarine had failed to respond in any way to these attacks. By midday, 8 hours into the battle, Hubbard had decided that the submarine could not fire torpedoes. The 815 would have provided an easy target. As, according to Hubbard, the sea was calm. Moulton later contradicted this, saying the sea was sometimes quite rough. Hubbard complained that his requests for more depth charges were acknowledged, but not answered. For at least 4 hours, the 815, which had no depth charges, kept the purported submarine in place. No oil or debris from the submarine had been sighted, so there was no indication of damage. The submarine made no attempt to retaliate or escape. The 815 was joined in the afternoon by the SC-536, or subchaser, were slightly smaller vessels than the 815. The 536 seems to have had inadequate detection equipment, so had to follow the 815 over the target and lay her depth charges at the signal of a whistle. Hubbard said the lieutenant commanding the 536 showed brilliant judgment and seamanship. Hold on, I need a drink again. Later that afternoon, the 815 soundman found a second submarine. Hubbard said the blimps saw air bubbles, oil, and a periscope. The blimp's own reports do not seem to have mentioned this. Throughout the battle, several oil boils appeared, but the 815 failed to take samples. The 536 had made 3 attacks by 4:36 p.m. when a Coast Guard patrol boat delivered 23 new depth charges to the 815. That evening, the USS C.G. Bonham and the SC-537 arrived. They could not locate a submarine with their detection equipment. Hubbard castigated them for their lack of cooperation, suggesting that the commander of the Bonham was afraid he would damage his ship if he fired a depth charge. Oh, wow. Attacking again, either superiors or other people of rank. On the second day, the battle continued at a slower pace. Hubbard was officially given command of the assembly that afternoon. On the third day of this one-sided contest, a periscope was allegedly sighted, but rapidly disappeared when the 815's gunners opened fire. They were joined by the larger PC-778, which carried 50 depth charges. She found no indication of submarines, so refused either to lay depth charges or to supply any to Hubbard. Indeed, Hubbard had such difficulty obtaining more ammunition that Moulton sent a message to the commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor asking why in thunder we couldn't get any help. That's always smart. Go above your chain of command. At midnight on May 21, the PC-815 was ordered back to Astoria. According to Hubbard's report, the action had lasted for 55 hours and 27 minutes. The PC-815 had remained in the area searching for a further 13 hours. They had used a total of 35 depth charges, and despite the failure of either of the submarines to respond, they had sustained 3 minor casualties and shot away their own radio antenna. That's funny. Yep. Definitely. And in the military, in the Navy, You do not go above your chain of command. You don't, unless it's something heinous or against the law or something like that. You have to go up your chain of command. And all you're going to do is tick off your superiors who are in charge of your life, where you get stationed and what job you get stationed at sometimes. So I'm surprised he didn't get stationed in Alaska. Alrighty. Let's see. Alright, bottom left. In a personnel report attached to his action report, Hubbard congratulated his crew without exception for their part in the battle. In his summary, Hubbard again sang the praises of Lieutenant Kropke of the SC-536. He criticized the commanding officers of the blimps for their lack of knowledge of anti-submarine warfare. Hubbard concluded his report with the claim that the PC-815 had completely immobilized one Japanese submarine and severely damaged a second. Another officer, Ensign Walker, that was my rank in ROTC, I was an ensign. Ensign Walker mentioned only one submarine in his report. Moulton confirmed Hubbard's report both at the time and 40 years later in court. Admiral Fletcher was not impressed. In his comment on the report of June 8, 1943, he said, SC's 536 and 537, CGC's Bonham, and 78302, and blimps K-33 and K-39 engaged in this submarine search. Reports have been received from the commanding officer of each of these ships in writing and in personal interviews. An oral report has also been received from Lieutenant Commander E.J. Sullivan, USN Commander, Airship Squadron 33, who made a trip to the area during the search on one of the blimps. There is known magnetic deposit in the area in which depth charges were dropped. An analysis of all reports convinces me that there was no submarine in the area. Lieutenant Commander Sullivan states that he was unable to obtain any evidence of a submarine except one bubble of air, which is unexplained except by turbulence of water due to a depth charge explosion. The commanding officers of all ships except the PC-815 state they had no evidence of a submarine and do not think a submarine was in the area. Whew. It seems that at the time, Hubbard managed to win his crew over into believing they had disabled two submarines. They certainly believed in him. One of the reports submitted by the crew included this statement: but above all, the crew, each and every man, looks up to and respects the captain, L. Ron Hubbard, and everything in every way that the men should respect a leader. And I might add that the crew thinks that he is one of the best leaders of any ship afloat. And in court, Moulton said of Hubbard, he ran a very competent, extremely competent attack throughout the thing. He did a very fine job. Hubbard's report, written before Admiral Fletcher had interviewed anyone, was defensive from the start. His statement about those who disagreed with him are interesting. He criticized the very officers who were to deny the submarine's existence. For someone who claimed to have slept during his only course in anti-submarine warfare and had not seen action previously, Hubbard's comments about the other commanders' inadequate knowledge of ASW were distinctly high-handed. Okay. I'm going to end there and put a bookmark. All right. I'm going to end there. Let's see. But yeah. Oh, where am I? Holy crap. There I am. Yeah, this was wow. I had read in a brief history where he went on a 60-hour pursuit of a submarine that wasn't really there on his shakedown cruise. I'm just like, wow. But and oh, I had a thought in there I just lost. What was it? Something about the Navy. Oh, so I was in Navy junior ROTC in high school. And so I went to a week, my freshman year, I went to a week of Great Lakes. Hey, Bob, how are you doing? You'll have to listen on the replay. This one was a bit interesting. It's about his Navy career and how much he messed it up. So my freshman year, I went to a week of basic training in Great Lakes, Illinois. I went to the Norfolk, Virginia Naval Yards twice. We toured Philadelphia. Oh no, did I do? And then what was really cool is I was in a naval warfare. I forget what it was called. Woo! Almost knocked my cup off. Anyway, it was a big room with this like pool. It wasn't very deep. Like the whole room. It had to be 30 by 30 and all these little ships on it so that you could practice warfare. I can't remember if they were remote controlled. I think they might have been. That was a long time ago, guys. It was like 40 years ago. Um, and that was so cool to watch. So that, and we toured ships. I've been on a nuclear submarine. Got a good story about that too. So while we were touring the submarine, they have people walking on top. When we come on, you have to salute the flag, salute the officer, and ask permission to board. And so they knew we were going to be touring and using the periscope. So they told everybody on top we were there. So we toured it. And what happened was, after they gave the all clear that we were kind of done with our tour, but we were still in the ship. One of the other students went back into the periscope room and decided to raise the periscope and look around and almost knocked one of the security off the ship or knock him down. That was funny. And submarines, they don't have the height limit anymore. They make them so that you can matter of fact, on that submarine was an alumni of our unit, and he was like 6 feet tall. It was really cool. So they just have this square table, and it's a big booth. So if you're in the back and you want to get up, everybody has to move. That's where you eat. That's where you watch TV. Everything. You do everything at that table because all you have is a bunk and a curtain. So that's what my son had. He was even on an aircraft carrier, and all he had was a bunk with a curtain. So I really wish we would have went in the Navy. I really regret it. So I have to go to work again, and I need a little bit of extra time. I have to leave at 5, and I need to leave a little early because you never know what traffic might be, and I need to pack up my stuff. So once I have all my stuff in this backpack that I'm always going to carry, I won't need this extra time, and I'll probably read an hour and a half because I already have my face on and stuff. All I have to do is change my clothes and leave. Oh my God, I have to tell you about my rental car. Oh my gosh, it is a alien spaceship. So I'm in a Hyundai Palisade. Hi, Aaron. Or bye. Hi or bye. So wow. So it's all digital screen. You can put navigation in and it projects it on the windshield, It projects your speed. It has a little sign of the speed of the road you're on, and it'll turn red if you're speeding. And it tells you your next direction on the windshield. And when you start going uphill or speeding up, the lumbar comes out to support you. And then when you get flat and slow down, it goes in. I was trying to find the cruise control forever. It took me like 15 minutes. And I thought I had found cruise control. But what I found was the self-driving. I was like, because the steering wheel kept trying to do its own thing. Finally, I went like this. I was like, oh my goodness, this car is driving itself. It was amazing. So I didn't even drive. It was really helpful on the way home because you get a little loopy. So I loved it on the way home. I honestly, if we could afford one, I looked them up and they can run between $40,000 and $50,000. Because I even said that. I told my husband and he was like, also, we need to buy you one. I said, I don't think we can afford one. It's all computer. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. And heated seat. I found that out this morning. Just so many things that go wrong. So my truck is like the base model. Base. And so it was like, and for such an expensive car, and it's got 3 rows of seat. It's really big. But man, I needed that cruise control because it's easy to fly in that thing and not feel it. The seat you sit on is flat and hard, not comfortable at all. I'm like, you have this expensive vehicle with all the bells and whistles, and your seat can't be more comfortable than this. Hey, Sophia, I'm about to log off because I got to get ready for work again. I was doing the time. Come this August, it'll have been 15 years since I haven't worked. So this was my first job in almost 15 years. So it's pretty, but it's really easy job. I mean, it's really easy. You just have to really pay attention to machinery and looking for leaks and doing perimeter checks and chasing off we have a homeless shelter, like literally I can see it. And so we get a lot of weird stuff. I had to chase a guy off last night. That was interesting. But I couldn't get to him. I couldn't figure out how to get through one of the gates. So I just yelled over the fence and strobed my flashlight and said, I'm coming around there. You're not supposed to be there. I went back in, looked on the camera. He was gone. So thanks, Sophia. The only issue is it's 12 hours. And my lower back is killing me. My legs and feet, they're fine. I forget what I was going to get at. I don't remember now. Oh, and they totaled our camper. They said there's too much damage. So I'll keep you up to date on that because I don't know if we have gap insurance. And what happened with the last car they totaled, there was a gap of a bunch of money that we still had to pay off. So I have the chance. Definitely Tom's okay with us buying the Class C motorhome. If you don't know what that is, it's the one that has the pickup truck front. It's smaller because I can't drive one of those big, huge Class A's. Oh, thank you, Sophia. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've done some wild stuff. I did brakes on a car because I couldn't afford to pay somebody to do it. And I built a porch by myself. It was a little porch over our little tiny deck. We since have a big deck. But you can tell it was me because as you're going down the steps, it's crooked because of how short I was. and stuff like that. Yeah, you're right. I've done a lot. I couldn't wait around for my man to do it. So yeah, so I didn't get to tell you quick. I got to get off here soon. But so Tom and I work for the same company, literally just a couple blocks apart. And we have to drive separate because I have to be there by 6 p.m. He doesn't go to work until 10. Well, he is in a car half the night patrolling all these different properties that these people own. So I just texted him that I was doing my perimeter patrol just for safety. And I was going to text him when I got back inside, because this is going outside of our gate and walking around. Never know who you might. And it was like 4 a.m. I'm walking along this little dark back street, and I hear somebody yells at me, and I freaked out. I was like, I turn around, it's him messing with me. I was like, I didn't even hear the car. So I was like, we're not supposed to be fraternizing, but he was worried about me doing the perimeter. So that little dark area, he has lights all the way around his car. And when he gets to a location, he turns them all on. Because the biggest thing is just you have to get the homeless people off the property. That's what the client wants. And there's a shelter right there. So usually when they know there's a presence, they don't come around. So that's the biggest reason we do a perimeter check, is just to show our presence, and the word gets around, they got security, don't go over there. So I have to get up now. But I bought a back brace I used. It seemed to help quite a bit. And it's great because I can do my patrols however I want, and it's 4 floors. So I'll go do a floor for 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll come back, or I'll do 2 floors, and then I can come back and sit down, watch cameras for a little while, and then go back. So it's fairly, I'm not on my feet the whole entire time. So that's a plus. But it's very, very dark in there. And luckily I'm not afraid of the dark or anything like that. Thank y'all for being here. I know a lot of people went live while I was on, so probably stuff I'll listen to on the way to work. Let's see. And I hope to be out protesting this week now that I have a rental car. I just heard a siren. Yeah, Scooter Mom, I will. Scooter Chat Mama. I have to remember that. I still call you Scooter Mom. Hey, Eric. I'm just about to log off, but thanks for dropping in. You can listen to it on the replay. It's about L. Ron Hubbard naval career and how much he lied about it. It's really interesting. Okay. Bye, y'all. See you later this week.